Normally, to inspect the coordinates of the project base point and survey point, which are normally hidden, you would need to go to the visibility graphics, go to site, and put a tick against survey point and project base point, so you could see them in your desired view. Then you will have to select each of them individually to inspect the data you wish to see. I find it awkward and time consuming. I have automated this process with pyRevit, and it makes my life a bit easier. Let me demonstrate this. If I run the script, a table is presented to the Revit user which displays model's name. I can see project base point and survey point pinned status. Basically, I can see if they are pinned or not. I can also see clipped status. As well as that, I can see north, south, east, west, elevation, and angle true to north values. And all of that with a click of a button. In this video, I'm going to create a pull-down button called coord, short for coordinates, inspect base points push button, and I'm going to create a script from scratch that gets base points data. So let's dive in. The first thing I want to do is open Revit. At the time of recording, I'm using Revit 2024 and pyRevit 4.8.16. In this video, I'm going to create another pull-down button called coordinates and update the icon accordingly. As well as that, I'm going to create a push button called inspect base points with magnifying glass as the icon. And finally, I'm going to update the script. If you want to know more about how to create these pull-down buttons, push buttons, about bundle.yaml file and how this folder structure works, please watch my previous videos, as in this video I want to focus more on explaining Revit API aspects rather than repeating myself over and over again. I'm in my pyRevit extension folder, the one I created on my desktop. I have drilled down until I see .pulldown folders, and I want to copy-paste sheetsviews .pulldown folder. And I want to rename it to coord for coordinates .pulldown. Just like so. Then I want to go inside this folder and rename .pushbutton folder to inspect base points .pushbutton. And I want to go inside this folder and rename the Python file to inspect base points _ script.py. Just like so. Then I'm gonna go back to the folder where my .pulldown folders are located. And I want to open bundle.yaml file in PyCharm. Let me zoom in. I'm gonna make a new line with 3 dashes, which will add a separator line between the pull-down buttons in Revit user interface. Then I'm gonna make a new line again and add the new pull-down button name, which is coord, just like that. I have updated the folder names and updated the bundle.yaml file. So the last thing I want to do before I start coding is update the pull down button icon. So let me go to icons8.com website and search for coordinates icon. And let's say that I do like this one. So I'm going to click on the download button, and I'm going to make sure that I choose 96 by 96 pixels icon in PNG format. And I hit the download button. Then I'm going to go to the downloads folder. And I want to rename this file to icon.png. And I'm going to cut it to the cord.pulldown folder. And I'm going to replace the file in the destination, just like that. And for the push button, I'm going to leave this magnifying glass icon as previously mentioned. Before I start coding, let me go to Revit and do a reload. So if I go to pyRevit tab, pyRevit drop-down menu settings, and click Save Settings and Reload. Then go to my Revit Advisor custom tab to check, and I can see the new pull down button called Cord and with the updated icon. And if I check the push button, I can see that it's still named Inspect Views, not Inspect Base Points. And that's because I need to update title variable inside the script, which I will do shortly. Also, I cannot see a separator line between these two pull down buttons. So I'm going to have to restart my Revit session for the changes to appear. I have restarted the Revit session, and now I can see the separator line between the pull down buttons. So far so good. And it's time to do the coding. Let me go to PyCharm, find inspect base points underscore script.py file, double click on it. Let me close this file. And here I'm going to delete everything apart from tooltip and title and context variables. And also I'm gonna leave this data table function. So let me delete this. As I said, I'm gonna leave this function. I'm gonna delete this. Let me delete this as well. Just like so. And I'm going to start from updating the tooltip. Before updating the tooltip, let me zoom in and add this line to the top of the script. Just like so. This special comment ensures that the Python interpreter reads the file using UTF-8 encoding. In one of my column names of the data table, I have a degree symbol for true to north angle, So this line allows to read the degree sign, otherwise I would not be able to run the script. Okay, let me update the tooltip. Displays base points data. Project base point coordinates. Let me copy this, paste it. I want to make it capital. Let me change this to survey point coordinates, then clipped status, and pinned status. As well as that, I want to update the date to today's date, which is 2305, and also I want to update the title variable to inspect base points. And for now, let me comment this out by clicking Ctrl+/ on my keyboard, just like that. And finally, let me go to Revit and do a reload. I'm gonna go to pyRevit, settings, and click Save Settings and Reload button. Once that's done, I'm gonna go to Revivisor Custom tab and check if my push button name has been updated. It has been updated to inspect base points, and also I can see that the tooltip has been updated as well. So far so good. I'm back to PyCharm and I'm gonna proceed with imports. So let me comment it. Imports, import Revit classes enumerations, and modules from pyRevit library. From autodesk.revit.db, import filtered element collector. Base point, built-in parameter, XYZ, and from pyRevit, import script. Just to summarize, from autodesk.revit.db namespace, I have imported filtered element collector class, base point class, built-in parameter enumeration, and XYZ class. So let me start from the base point class. I'm going to go to Revit API docs and choose 2024 and search for base point class. And if I click on it, here they state that it's a class representing the project base point and survey point. Each Revit project contains one project base point and one survey point. The project base point represents the origin of the project coordinate system, and the survey point represents the origin of the shared coordinate system. Since the purpose of my script is to check the coordinates of the project base point and survey point, then this class is exactly what I need. Also here under the inheritance hierarchy, I can see that the base point class is a subclass of element class. Therefore, I have also imported filtered element collector class. If you want to know more about this class, please watch my previous videos. I'm gonna talk about the built-in parameter enumeration and XYZ class later on in the script. Let me take care of the rest of the imports and explain why I need those. So get output object to print the table. Output equals script dot get output. Then get logger object to use inside try except block. Logger equals script dot get logger. Then import math library to work with PyNumber. Import math. And finally get active Revit document doc equals Revit active UI document dot document. And let me correct this error. I want to get the output just like that. I need script module to handle output and logging. If I scroll down, here you can see that I use output.print_table to print the table. And when it comes to logger, I'm gonna use it to log error messages if exception occurs during the execution of the script. It should make sense later on in the script. As well as that, I have imported math Python library to get PyNumber. I need PyNumber to get true to north angle. Again, it should make sense later on in the script. And finally, doc variable gets currently active Revit document. I found out about this logger object by exploring the scripts from the pyRevit tab. If you wish to explore these scripts and see how they work, let's say you wish to know how this push button works. On your keyboard, hold the Alt key down and click the left button of your mouse. And the folder containing the script will be opened. So you can explore it if you wish. Anyway, these are all the imports I need for my script. So I'm gonna move on to the next topic, which is functions. In this script, I'm planning to create 3 functions. One function is ready, which is data table. that will print base points data in a table format. I just need to update the column names, which I'm gonna do at the very end. Let me comment it first. So the purpose of the first function is to get base points from active Revit document. I'm gonna name this function getBasePoints. And it will have three parameters: doc, and here I will use doc variable to get active Revit document, and the two other parameters are going to be called PBP for project base point, and I'm going to set it to false by default. And the other parameter is going to be called SP for survey point, and I'm going to set it to false by default as well. Basically, I'm going to use these two parameters for return. Let's say if PBP is set to true, then the function will return project base point. And if SP is set to true, then the function will return survey point. As well as that, I want to explain what the function does within triple quotations. So let me do that. Function gets base points from active Revit document Also, I want to initiate two variables and assign to none. So let me comment it first. Initiate PBP for project base point and SP for survey point variables, and assign to none. So project base point equals none, and survey point equals none. I will reassign project base point variable to project base point element and survey point variable to survey point element once I collected base points from active Revit document, which I'm gonna do next. Let me code it first and explain. So I'm gonna comment it, get base points from active Revit document base points equals filtered element collector doc of class base point, then where element is not element type, two elements. So it's going to be a list of elements. I have named the list base points, and since base points are considered to be elements in the Revit API world, I'm going to use filtered element collector class, with doc variable as an argument to make sure base points are collected within active Revit document. Next, I'm going to use off-class method with base point class as an argument. Basically, that will apply an element class filter to the collector so it knows what exactly to look for. Next, I'm going to use where element is not element type method to make sure that I only collect instances, not types. And finally, I'm going to use toElements method to get a list of element objects. I have collected base points and they are in the base points list of elements. But how can I know which one is the project base point and which one is the survey point? To know that, I'm going to use isShared property of the base point class. So I'm going to go to the Revit API docs, choose 2024, search for base point class. I'm going to expand and find isShared property. And here I can see it indicates whether the base point is shared. The project's survey point is a base point which is shared. So now I know that the survey point is the base point that is shared. So what I'm going to do is iterate over the base points list, and the base point that is shared I'm going to assign to survey point variable, and the base point that is not shared I'm going to assign to the project base point variable. So let me do that. So let me comment it first. Base point that is shared is a survey point. Not shared project base point. So for each base point in base points list, if not BP is shared, if base point is not shared, I want to assign base point to project base point variable. Otherwise, else, if base point is shared, I want to assign the base point to survey point variable. Once that's done, the last thing I want to take care of in this function is return values. So let me code it first and explain once it's done. So return options if BBP and SP are true, then return project base point and survey point. Else if PBP is true, return project base point else if, let me correct it to else if, then again else if SP is true, return survey point. else return none. So if I call this function and set both PBP and SP to true, then the function will return project base point and survey point. If I set PBP to true and leave SP as false by default, then the function will return project base point. If I set SP to true and leave PBP as false by default, then the function will return survey point. If I leave both PBP and SP set to false, then the function will return none. Also, let me change the 4 spaces to tabs, as that is my preference. Just like so. The next step would be to create the last function, which will get north, south, east, west, elevation and true to north angle values of the project base point and survey point. I'm going to name the function get host model coord, and the function will have one parameter doc, and as an argument I'm going to use this doc variable. Also, within triple quotations, I want to provide an explanation of what the function does. So function to get host models project base point and survey point data. Just like that. The next thing I want to do is create 2 empty lists. So let me comment it. Initiate data lists. The first list will contain project base point data, and I want to name it host doc data PBP. And the other list will contain survey point data, and I want to name it host doc data SP. And I want, as I said, 2 lists. Now I want to create a variable, and I want to name it threshold value. So let me comment it. Create threshold value variable. And as I said, I want to name it threshold value, and I want it to be equal to 0.005. So if the values of north, south, east, west and elevation are less than 0.005 of a millimeter, I want the values to be 0, as I think anything less than 0.005 is negligible, but you can decide for yourself if you need this threshold value variable. I have tested my script a few times and haven't got any errors, but despite this, whatever I code next, I want to include in the try except block, as I'm going to be accessing quite a few properties, methods and built-in parameters, so I want to handle exceptions. Manage errors within try except block. Start try block. Try. I want to start by getting project base point element and survey point element by calling get base points function. Get base points. So PBP host equals get base points doc PBP equals true. And now we know that if we set PBP to true, then the function will return project base point element, and sp host equals get base points doc sp true. And again, we know that if we set sp to true, then the function returns survey point element. Once I got the project base point and survey point elements, I want to get the coordinates, and I'm gonna start from project base point. Get project base point data, convert feet to millimeters, radians to degrees. To get the north, south, east, west and elevation values, I'm going to use shared position of the base point class. So let me go to Revit API docs, search for base point class. I'm going to expand it and find shared position property. I can see it's a shared position of the base point based on the active project location of its belonging document. I can also see that it returns XYZ class, object representing coordinates in a 3-dimensional space. So the values I want to get, which are north, south, east, west, and elevation, is nothing else but coordinates in a 3-dimensional space. So let me go to PyCharm and code it. Let me do a quick test. I want to comment this out for now by pressing Ctrl+/button on my keyboard. So let me do a quick test. So I'm gonna call it test, and I want to call get base points function get base points doc, and I want to get project base point, so I'm gonna set PBP to true, and let me print the test, and I want to call I want to get shared position property. So let me go to Revit, let me select project base point to see its values, and let me run the script. So I can see I got X, Y, and Z coordinates, but they don't really match these values, and that's because these values are shown in feet. That's how Revit shows it. So let me go to PyCharm and multiply it by, to convert feet to millimeters, let me multiply it by 304.8. So let me go to Revit and run the script again. So I can see that this value, the X value, is my east-west value, Y value y coordinate is my north-south value, and z coordinate is my elevation value. So again, so now that I know that x value is east-west value, y coordinate is north-south value, and z coordinate is my elevation value. So let me go to PyCharm and do it in a proper way. I'm back to PyCharm. Let me delete this bit for now. Uncomment this bit by pressing Ctrl+/ on my keyboard. And I want to name it shared pos for a shared position equals project base point element, so pbp host and get shared position property and multiply it by 304.8 to convert feet to millimeters. Again, now I know that the shared position returns XYZ coordinates. One of the ways to access these values is by using XYZ properties of the XYZ class. So let me go to Revit API docs, search for base point class. I'm gonna find shared position property, and I can see that the shared position property returns XYZ class. And if I expand XYZ class properties, I can see that X property gets the first coordinate, Y property gets the second coordinate, and Z property gets the third coordinate. So let me go to PyCharm and get my north, south, east, west, and elevation values. I'm back to PyCharm, so let me code it first and explain. So pbp_ns, short for a project base point north, south, equals shared position and get Y property. Then pbp_ns equals 0 if absolute value of pbp_ns is less than threshold value. Otherwise, else I want to round pbp_ns to two decimals. Obviously, let me correct it to else, just like that. Let me summarize what I have done here. Here I get the project base point north-south value by accessing Y property of the XYZ class. Here I use if-else conditional statement, and I say that I want the project base point north-south value to be 0 if project base point north-south absolute value is less than threshold value, which is 0.005. Otherwise, else I want project base point north-south value to be rounded to 2 decimals. Hope it makes sense. In the same manner, let me take care of the east-west and elevation values. So I'm gonna copy it and paste it twice. So let me indent it. So I'm gonna call this one east-west and change this to X property. Again, this one changed to east-west, east-west again, and finally this one as well. I'm gonna change this one to EL for elevation, change this one to Z, update this one to EL for elevation, this one as well, and finally I'm gonna update this one to EL as well, just like that. I have taken care of the project base point north-south east, west, and elevation values, it's time to take care of the true to north angle value, and it's a bit tricky, so let me code it first and explain once it's done. So project pos for a project short for a project position equals doc.active project location dot get project position xyz 0 0 0. Then PBP angle short for a project base point angle equals round project pos angle divided by math.py divided by 180 round to 3 decimals. Then PBP angle equals 360 minus PBP angle if PBP angle more than 0, else absolute value PBP angle. And let me quickly check it. And let me make this one P capital and this one P capital as well. So let's talk about each line separately. I named this project pos short for a project position as it gets project position. So this doc is this one doc variable which takes currently active Revit document. So again, this one doc, if I go to Revit API docs and search for document class, and if I click on it, I can see that it's an object that represents an open Autodesk Revit project. In other words, it's a currently active Revit document. And let me go back to PyCharm. So this active project location, if I go back to Revit API docs, let me expand this document class and expand its properties. I can see there is a property called active project location. I can see that it retrieves the active project location, and under remarks I can see that getting this property returns the currently active project location that the user is currently working with. And if I click on this guy right here, I can see that it's a representation of a specific instance and location of the current project. And under remarks, I can see that by default, each Revit project contains at least one named location called internal. So if I go to Revit, Manage tab, and click on location, go to site, I think they are talking about this guy right here. So if I go back to Revit API docs, expand project location class and expand methods, I can see there is a get project position method, and I can see that it gets the coordinates of a point in the project location's coordinate system. And under remarks, I can see when getting this value, the north, south, east, west, and elevation values report the coordinates of the point similar to the Revit command report shared coordinates. And when it comes to this xyz000, frankly speaking, I have looked at this example right here and followed it. So have a look and examine it for yourself. Again, when I say I followed this example, I only followed this bit right here. This script gets and sets the value of the project location. My script only gets the values, so bear that in mind. So if I scroll up, I can see that if I apply getProjectPosition method with xyz as an argument, it returns project position. And if I expand its properties, I can see there is angle property, angle from true north. So if I go to PyCharm and look at this line, so basically I get angle property of the project position, which returns angle in radians. And to convert radians to degrees, I divide this pi number by 180, and then divide this value by this value, again to convert radians to degrees. And then I round up this value to 3 decimal places, to 3 decimals. And when it comes to this line, basically it's another if-else conditional statement, which states that I want, if this value is more than 0, I want this value to be, I want project base point angle to be 360 minus this value. Otherwise, else, if it's 0 or negative, I want project base point angle value to be absolute value of this one. Again, without this conversion, if I print just this one, I don't get correct value. But let me show you what I mean. Hopefully I can explain it. If I copy this one, let me get rid of this indentation. And for now I'm gonna comment it by clicking Control and slash on my keyboard, and I want to print BBP angle. So let me go to Revit, and if I select and filter out project base point, I can see that the angle is 45 degrees, and if I run the script, it shows the correct number, which is 45. But let me remove the conversion I was talking about. Let me comment this out and print this value I get initially before conversion. If I go to Revit and run the script, again I get negative value, minus 45, which is not what I want. So again, this conversion, I figured it out myself. With this conversion, I get the value I need. Again, I tested my script a few times, and every time I get the correct value. Again, as I said, let me undo everything. As I said, it's a bit tricky, but hopefully I was able to explain it. Before I move on to collect survey point coordinates, let me quickly go back to Revit API docs. And apart from angle property of the project base point class, I can also see there is east-west property, which gets east-west offset, elevation property, which gets elevation above ground level, and north-south property, which gets north-south offset. So again, as far as I can see, there are at least 2 ways that I can get the north, south, east, west, and elevation values of the project base point. Again, one way is to get the shared position property of the base point element multiplied by 304.8 to convert from feet to millimeters, and then take respective XYZ values to get XYZ properties. And another way would be to get the project position and get its north, south, east, west, and elevation properties. Again, all I wanted is to show that there is more than one way to get the north, south, east, west, and elevation values of the project base point. Hope it makes sense. Let me comment this first. I'm gonna copy this one and paste it here and update this one to survey point, just like so. To get the survey point data, I would need to install Revitlookup. So let me go to Google, type Revitlookup in the search bar. Then I'm gonna find releases. And if I scroll down to find Revitlookup 2024 version, once downloaded, I'm gonna go to the downloads folder and double click on the downloaded file. I'm gonna hit run anyway in my case. Click the next button. I'm gonna accept the default destination path for now and hit the next button. I'm gonna click the install button, and once it has been installed, I'm gonna click finish button. So I'm gonna click finish and go to Revit to check. If I go to add-ins tab, I can see that Revitlookup has been installed. So far so good. Let me select the survey point. I'm gonna filter it out. And then I'm gonna go to the add-ins tab, click the Revitlookup pull down button and click the Snoop selection push button. And I'm gonna scroll down until I find parameters, click on it. And here I can see east-west parameter. I can see the parameter name, and if I click on it, I can see that it's a built-in parameter. Let me close it, and the value I wanted to get is this one as double. Now I know that these are feet because that's how Revit shows it, so I will have to convert it. And with the same principle, I wanted to get north-south parameter and elevation parameter. So let me close this windows and go to PyCharm to do the coding. Let me quickly go to the Revit API documentation, choose 2024 and search for built-in parameter. So I'm gonna click on it, and I can see it's a built-in parameter enumeration. And here I can see that it's an enumerated type listing all of the built-in parameter IDs supported by Autodesk Revit. And if I click Ctrl+F on my keyboard and try to find base point north-south, so I can see the parameters, the built-in parameters I need are here, which is base point elevation parameter, base point east-west parameter, and base point north-south parameter. Again, if I scroll up, I can see it's a built-in parameter enumeration, and if I go to PyCharm, I have imported the built-in parameter enumeration at the top of my script, so I can use those built-in parameters in my script. Again, let me code it first and explain once it's done. So SPNS, short for a survey point north-south, equals SP host survey point element, get underscore parameter bracket built-in parameter dot base point north south param, then as double and multiplied by 304.8, then SPNS equals 0 if absolute value, SPNS NS less than threshold value, else I want to round it SP underscore NS to 2 decimal places. So let me explain what I've done. Again, sp_ns is short for a survey point north-south. And that's the way how you access the built-in parameter. Basically, this is sp_host, which is survey point element, which is this one. Then you type get_parameter in brackets built-in parameter and built-in parameter name. And the reason I'm using asDouble method is because, let me quickly go to Revit API and type asDouble. So I can see that this method provides access to the double precision number within the parameter. And under remarks, I can see that the asDouble method should only be used if the storage type property returns that the internal contents of the parameter is a double. So let me quickly go to Revit. I'm going to select survey point, go to add-ins tab, Revitlookup, snip selection, go to parameters. Let me select east-west, and I can see that the storage type is double. Now I'm going to select elevation. I can see that the storage type is double as well. And north-south parameter, I can see that the storage type is double as well. Let me go to PyCharm, and finally, again, I multiply by 304.8 to convert from feet to millimeters. And here, again, this is my personal conversion. If this value, if absolute value is, basically, if this absolute value is less than threshold value, which is 0.05, then I want the value to be 0. Otherwise, else, I want the value to be rounded to 2 decimals. Let me take care of the east-west and elevation values of the survey point. So let me copy this and paste it twice. Let me indent it. So again, I'm going to name this east-west. It's going to be east-west parameter. Again, let me change it to east-west. Same here, and finally same here. I'm going to change this one to EL for elevation. This one I'm going to change to elevation as well. This one is going to be EL. This one too. And finally this one as well. Now let me take care of the clipped status and pinned status of the project base point and survey point. Let me go to Revit API docs, search for base point class, and this time I want to go to members, and I'm gonna scroll down until I see properties, and I want to find pinned property. And in the description here, I can see that it identifies if the element has been pinned to prevent changes. So I'm going to use this property to check if my project base point and survey point are pinned. Also, if I go to base point properties, expanded, and here I can see there is a clipped property which checks clipped state of the survey point shared base point. And if I skip all of that, here I can see for project base point, non-shared base point, this property will always return false. Again, I'm going to use clipped property to check if my survey point is clipped. And as far as I understand, project base point cannot be clipped. So I'm going to exclude clipped status check for a project base point from my script. So let me go to PyCharm and code it. Again, let me code it first and explain once it's done. So let me comment it first, get pinned clipped status pvp underscore pinned status equals yes capital if pvp host dot pinned else no. And sp pinned status equals yes if sp host dot pinned else no. So this is another if-else conditional statement, which basically says the following. If pinned property of the project base point element returns true if it's pinned, then this variable will return yes string. Otherwise, if the project base point element is not pinned, if pinned property returns false, then this variable will return no string. And that's exactly the same with the survey point. If the pinned property of the survey point element returns true, if it's pinned, then this variable will return yes string. And if this property of the survey point element returns false, if it's not pinned, then this variable will return no string. I'm gonna take care of the clipped status. So same thing, I'm gonna code it first and explain once it's done. So I'm gonna comment it, check if base point has an attribute clipped, as not all Revit versions support it. If has attribute sp host clipped, then I want sp clipped status to be equal to yes if sp host clipped returns true, else no, and else this one sp clipped status equals no string. And let me correct it, my mistake. I want this one to return an A string, just like that. Let me quickly summarize what I've done here. So here is another if-else conditional statement. So basically I check if here at the top, I check if the survey point element has an attribute, if has attribute called clipped. And the reason I included this check is because not all Revit API versions support clipped property. As far as I know, as far as I remember, Revit API version 2019 does not support clipped property for the base point. So again, if clipped property is not available for the base point, then this survey point clipped status variable will be assigned to an a string, which is short for not applicable. And if clipped property is available for the survey point element, then this survey point clipped status variable will be assigned to yes string if clipped property of the survey point element is true if it's clipped, and if it's not clipped, if it returns false, then this variable survey point clipped status will be assigned to no string. The next step would be to append the data I collected to the lists. So let me do that. Append data to list. Host doc data ppp append bracket square bracket project base point string and then comma ppp pin status comma string na not applicable then pppns comma ppp east west ppp el and ppp angle and let me copy this and paste it here. I'm going to indent it and change this to host doc data sp. I'm going to update this one to survey point, then sp pinned status. Let me copy this one, replace this one with this one and change this one to clipped status. Update this one to sp for survey point, sp, and replace this one with not applicable string, just like that. I think it's straightforward, but let me just summarize just in case. Again, here at the top of the function I created two empty lists, host doc data ppp and host doc data sp. And here, using the append Python function, I append the data I collected to the lists. So basically this is the reference point base point name, which is project base point. It's a string. Here I attach project base point pin status. Clipped status, as I mentioned, for a project base point is not available, so it's not applicable. Then I attach project base point north south value, which is this one. And in the same manner, I append project base point east west value, project base point elevation, and project base point true to north angle value. And here I append the survey point data to the host doc data sp list. So a reference point name, survey point pin status, survey point clipped status, survey point north south value, east west value of the survey point elevation value, and true to north angle value is not applicable for a survey point. I'm gonna take care of the exception block, so let me copy this line. I want it to be on the same level as try block, so try. I'm gonna update this one to start except block. So exception except exception as E. I'm gonna make another comment, display an error to Revit user. To Revit user. In case there is an exception, there is an exception. And exit the script. So I want logger dot error bracket script execution has failed due to execution has failed due to I want colon here dot format E and script dot exit. Let me quickly check for any errors. All of this is inside the try block. So if an error occurs within try block, then the script will jump to the except block. An error type will be displayed to the Revit user and the script will be terminated. And when it comes to this logger.error, then again, I copied it from one of the scripts on the pyRevit tab. I found out about it when I was exploring their scripts. Again, if you go to pyRevit tab, if you want to see how this push button works, just click Alt key button on your keyboard and plus left button of your mouse, just like so, and the folder with the script will be shown, so you can open it and explore how they do it. The last thing I want to do in this function is combine these two lists and return it. So let me take care of that. Combine the two lists. So combined host doc data, host doc data equals this list plus this list, and return combined list, return combined list, return, And I'm gonna copy this one and paste it here, just like so. As you might have guessed, when I call this getHostModelCoord function, the function will return combined host doc data list with all the data I collected. Also, let me clarify this bit. Here I get the survey point, north, south, east, west, and elevation values by accessing built-in parameters. And I tested it quite a few times and I don't get any errors. I tried to do the same for the project base point. I tried to access project base point north, south, east, west, elevation, and true to north angle values through built-in parameters, but from time to time I was getting errors. Then through many tests, I found out about this shared position property, and this is exactly how I got in my script. And so far I don't get any. I haven't been receiving or getting any errors. So if for some reason you will get an error, maybe try to use this project position and access its respective properties such as north, south, east, west, and elevation. Again, play around and see what's best for you. I'm gonna leave it for you to decide. And the last function I want to take care of is this one. So let me comment it. Let me uncomment this by highlighting and pressing Ctrl + button on my keyboard. It's gonna be data table function with data list parameter. I'm gonna update this function to print base point data in a table format. I want to delete this title and this comma. Let me make a new line here as well, just like that. Let me change this one to reference point. Then I want the pinned, then clipped, and then north, south in millimeters. Comma, I'm gonna copy this one. Then I want east, west. I'm gonna copy this one as well, and I'm gonna change this to elevation. And finally, I'm gonna copy it one more time and change this one to true to north angle. And if I hold the Alt key button on my keyboard and press 0176, I get the degree symbol, just like that. Again, my bad. Let me delete this comma and update it to angle true to north as per Revit user interface. Let me check it. Angle true to north. Angle true to north. Yeah. It's a straightforward function, but let me just quickly summarize just in case. Again, it's a function called data table, and it's got one parameter, which is data list, and as an argument, I'm gonna call this function and feed whatever it returns, and it returns this combined host doc data list of sublists. Again, the purpose of the function is to print the table with the data, with the relevant data, which is base point data. If you want to know more about output.print_table, please watch my previous videos. I explained what is data list, and these are my column names. Again, into the reference point column name, I'm going to feed this two strings, which is base, project base point and survey point. Into the pinned column, I'm going to feed pinned statuses. Into the clipped column, I'm going to feed clipped statuses. And basically you get the logic. It will make sense when I print the table. The last step when it comes down to script would be to collect the data and take care of the output. So I'm going to do it in one go. So I'm going to comment it, data collection. I'm going to call the list of sublist combined host model data. And I'm going to call the function, let me add e here, and I'm going to call the function get host model coord. And as an argument, I'm going to feed doc variable. So the data has been collected. Now output for Revit user, and print base point data of the host model. So output dot print md, print underscore md, bracket, it's gonna be a string, Revit host model, colon, dot format, doc dot title, and finally I'm gonna call the data table function with the combined host model data list of sublists, just like so. And I missed letter L from here. A quick summary of what I've done here. Here I called the get host model coord function with doc variable as an argument, and which returns a list of sublists, and I named it combined host model data. And if I go, when it comes down to this line, if I go to docs.pyrevitlabs.io output module and find print underscore md, and here I can see process markdown code and print to output window, and here is an example. So basically this output.print underscore md will print a separate line to the output window with this information. And obviously this is a string, and these two asterisks on each side of the Revit host model will make this bit Revit host model bold. And this is a placeholder, and this doc variable is going to go into this placeholder. And when it comes down to this doc.title, doc.title is going to go into this placeholder, and when it comes down to doc.title, if I go to Revit API docs, find document class, expand properties, and find title, the document's title, and if I read this line here under the remarks, it says that title is derived from the document's file name, not including the file name extension. So basically, if I go to Revit, it will take this file name rd-mep without .rvt. So again, to make the long story short, this line will print the Revit model's file name to the output window. And obviously here I call the data table function with the combined host model data, which will print a table with the base points data. The script is fully ready, so it's time to go to Revit and do some testing. So I'm in Revit and let me run the script. So as mentioned, let me go to PyCharm. Again, this line prints the Revit model's file name to the output window, which is this one. Revit host model in bold, and this is Revit model's file name, which is rd-mep. And this line, this function prints the base points data to the output window. And here is my data table. So I've got my reference point column, pinned column, clipped column, and so on. So first of all, I'm going to check the pinned status. I can see that the project base point is pinned. Yes means pinned. So let me unpin it. And let me rerun the script. So I can see that the project base point is not pinned now. Let me pin the survey point and run the script again. I can see that the survey point is pinned, yes. So just in case, let me pin it. Let me pin the project base point as well. I'm gonna rerun the script. Both are pinned, yes. And I saw that the survey point is unclipped, so let me unpin it and let me clip it. And I'm gonna rerun the script. So I can see that the survey point is not pinned because I unpinned it, and I can see that it's clipped, yes. It's time to test the north, south, east, west elevation and angle true to north values. So let me start from the survey point. So I'm going to select it. Let me just in case rerun the script. And I'm going to check the respective values. So this is my survey point. So this is the north-south value, which is this one, 117.2801.4. Again, in my script, I rounded up to 2 decimals, so looks good to me. East-west value is 4890977.7. So far so good. Elevation is 0, and angle true to north for a survey point is not applicable. So let me check the project base point. Let me just close all these windows. I'm gonna rerun the script just in case. And I'm gonna check the project base points values. I'm gonna start from north-south value, which is 116.3326.1. Again, same thing, I rounded up to 2 decimals because that is my preference. Then east-west value is 4900452.9. So far so good. Elevation 9900, and angle true to north is 45 degrees. So I can see that my script is working, so that's the end of the video.